Hello everybody, you're welcome to today's session with Watercolours with Ronnie Moore, and we're going to paint a robin, a nice little fella in the bushes in midwinter, and we might just finish him with a little spattering of snow at the end. So I hope you enjoy it, and just keep watching. So let's get started. The first thing is to draw the robin. I've already got it drawn here, and I've drawn it a little bit heavier than I would normally draw it, just so that you can see it. The way you really draw a robin is, if you think of it like an egg shape, I'll just show you briefly here, like an egg shape and a circle that's embedded down into it, like roughly that shape, and the head kind of embedded down into it, like intersecting there, just very roughly like that. And then connecting up here and here, and the little beak, and then the wings that come out, and then you can rub out the little lines between. That's just very roughly. So it's very much, a lot of birds are that kind of shape, like an egg and a little circle embedded down into it. So I've already done it here, and we're going to have the robin sitting on a branch and a lot of frostiness around him. So the first thing I'm going to do is to paint the branches in masking fluid. I'm going to leave the robin alone to the very last. He's going to be the last thing we do. So I'm going to use some masking fluid. I'll be using masking fluid today, or drawing gum it's also called. It's like a liquid rubber, and you paint it on and then you let it dry. You paint over it, and of course that keeps the paper clear underneath it, and at the end you can remove it then, and you have the white branches underneath it. So I'll be using that today. The colours that I'll be using today is Aureolin, which is a beautiful lemon yellow, and I'll be using Payne's Grey, turquoise blue, cadmium orange, cadmium red, and burnt sienna. These are all Holbein, except the orange is Winsor Newton. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. Now, how do you use masking fluid or drawing gum? First of all, get a brush that isn't a very good brush, and you get a bar of soap. You wet the brush, just wet it, dampen it, and get soap on the brush first. And the reason you do that is because if you don't do this, you may as well throw out your brush, because your brush, it'll be like it's covered in chewing gum afterwards. Whereas if you get soap on it first, you can wash it easily afterwards. So I'm dipping it into the masking fluid, and now I'm just going to paint a lot of branches, some of them quite thick. Always use quite a bit of masking fluid, because the heavier it's put on, the easier it is to peel off. Whereas if you're using it sparingly and scrubbing it down into the paper, it's very hard to use. The paper I'm using today is Arches 640 gram cold pressed. It's extravagant paper, but I love it. And you get away with murder with it as well too. It takes a lot of abuse. Okay, so I'm going to do some very thin ones. As each branch branches out, the actual branch becomes a bit thinner, because it's like, something getting peeled off it. So I'm going to do some very, very thin ones. So you gently use the very point of your brush for that. This takes a little while, but you can see how I'm doing the very thin ones and some thicker ones. And the other thing I'm going to do too is put some frosty leaves on it. And there could be any kind of leaves. I could put little dots. There could be little bits of holly coming in there as well. But these will be mostly left white, and so just little icy leaves. And lots of little branches, because this little robin is out in the bush on a very cold, frosty day. But by the looks of this robin, he's getting plenty to eat, so I wouldn't worry too much about him. Always remember to crisscross branches. I notice some people sometimes are afraid to crisscross them. They want to kind of give every branch a separate kind of place to live. Whereas if you know, crisscrossing them makes them look more natural. A few more thicker ones over here. You can keep an old brush especially for this, because even though you might put soap on them and all that, they still mightn't end up the best. I'll also be using cling film or Saran wrap, some people call it, for giving texture in the background. So even though it's nice to put a good few branches, you want to leave plenty of spaces as well so that you can get a nice texture from that. You'll see that later on in the video. Now we'll have to leave that dry for, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes. Although it always has a slightly tacky feel. It never feels completely dry, but give it a while anyway. And then wash your brush immediately in warm water. Now I'll start painting the background. The colours I'm going to use, first of all, Aureolin, yellow. I'll show it to you. I'll show you each colour as I'm using it. Just for the background, I'm going to use Aureolin, Payne's Grey, and Turquoise Blue. Now, people all work in different ways. Some people just use plates or whatever, and that's fine. But I like to do it this way, putting little bits of paint in there as I need it. Getting a brush, not a very, well, that is a good brush, but this will do. So I'm going to make Aureolin, and this is the Aureolin yellow, which is a beautiful yellow, really. I love it. It's my favourite yellow. It's very reactive with other colours for making greens or anything. And I mix a little bit, just to green it up a little bit, I'm just mixing in a little bit of the turquoise into it. So it also looks very nice actually with a little bit of the Payne's Grey in it as well for a very dark green, just sort of to show you that while I'm at it. Right, so now I'm going to make turquoise. So I have the Aureolin done. I'm going to do turquoise. You could do any colours. There's no particular reason why I'm using these colours. You can use any colours that you like because it's all kind of abstracty anyway. Could make a bit there with a bit of turquoise in it, which is, I'll show you the turquoise on its own is this. The Payne's Grey on its own is this. And it can go to a nice kind of bluey colour there. So you can see that you get all kinds of colours with that, all kinds of shades. But it is nice to mix them as well, to have the turquoise mixed with a little bit of the Payne's Grey. And we'll mix them a bit on the paper as well, let them run into each other. Now the one thing about this is that for people that don't paint a lot in watercolour, you have to be very, very fast at certain areas. And this is one of them, because we're going to paint, we're going to get all this on the paper and then immediately bunch up some Saran wrap or cling wrap and put it on it to create texture. So we don't want one part of it to be more dry than the other part. So we need to work with a fairly big brush and get it done as soon as possible. And it's, you need to have enough made up that you can dip the brush in, but not too much. We don't need an awful lot either. Okay, so here goes. And I'm not going to wet the page. Very often I wet the page first, but I'm not. I'm just going to go along with this and avoid the robin. Paint around the robin. I'm using a Princeton size 16 round brush here. Add a little bit of water even onto it to spread it out a bit. Not even bothering washing the brush that much. Doesn't really matter that much because they're all getting mixed in anyway. You can see how the masking fluid is standing out there. That'll all be removed in a while, but for the time being, we'll just protect those bits of the paper with it that we don't want covered in paint, and go around the robin. And when you're going around the robin, go right to the line. Don't leave a white halo. Don't kind of play it safe, you know, and just get a bit of tissue here too. I've just gone into the robin's head a little bit. Just remove it there. Yeah, you don't want a white halo around him where you've carefully avoided him. You don't want to do that. I have no great plan exactly where I'm putting all these colours. It's just get them mixed up somehow or other. Can mix some of the green in on top of that even. His little feet will be dark anyway, so they can be painted over it. Okay. Now while all that's nice and wet, we get a cling wrap. Pull out a large piece of it, much larger than the page because you want it crinkled up. You really have to move fairly fast with this because you can crinkle it up a little bit first just to get some good crinkles into it. And then you might actually use another bit. And press that down well and leave it for, I'd say, about 10 minutes. I think I've got a bit of paint on the robin there, but we'll take that off afterwards. Just keep pressing down to get all the air bubbles out of it. Good thing about watercolour is you get plenty of opportunity to do nothing, because you can do nothing now until that's settled. About 10 minutes. I'm just going to carefully remove this. You might find that it sticks a little bit to the masking fluid because the masking fluid always stays a little bit tacky, but it doesn't matter because it's coming off anyway. Now this is the part that it looks the roughest, but all will be well. First of all, I'm going to just tidy up the robin a little bit by removing some of the little bits of paint that went on them. So with a very clean brush, clean damp brush, I'm just going to remove. We'll be painting over this anyway, so it won't be that noticeable. Putting up a little. And if there's any little bits missing around the edge of them. So he'll be fine at the end. Now, before we remove, the next thing I'm going to do is remove the masking fluid, and I'm going to put a little bit of colour on the branches. But before I do that, before you start rubbing off the masking fluid, the background has to be completely dry. So I'm going to leave it for a little while just to make sure it's completely dry. Okay, so now it's dry enough to take off the masking fluid. This little thing is specifically for removing masking fluid. It's just a piece of kind of fairly hard rubber, and you can use that if you like. I prefer using my finger, actually, my hand, the soft part of your hand. Don't ever use your nails anyway. That's a real no-no. Now, because my paper is very heavy, good quality paper, it's safe enough. But if you're using a lighter paper, you really have to be very, very gentle with this, that you're not going to remove the surface of the paper. But this Arches 640 gram takes a lot of punishment. I'm not going to leave all of them white. I'm going to darken in some of the bigger branches, but leaving little impressions of snow on them as well. Because remember, in watercolour, generally speaking, you use the white of the page rather than white paint. There are exceptions to that rule, and some people do use white. I don't use it except if I'm sort of sparking on a little bit of snow or something like that on a winter scene. I might use it. But I wouldn't be happy painting gouache branches or anything like that. You can just run your hand over it lightly to make sure all the masking fluid is gone. Now I'm going to introduce burnt sienna. I already have Payne's grey and a bit of green, so I'm going to use the burnt sienna is this colour, it's tan, and mixed with the Payne's grey you can get dark browns right down to black as well. So for the branches I'm just going to take a little bit of green there as well, and maybe add a little bit of burnt sienna into it to get some earthy kind of green colours that you might see on a little bit of a branch. Mix a little bit of the burnt sienna. I'm just touching, not always using the very point of the brush, but sometimes the little bit of the side of the brush as well. Just remember that what the branches are round. They're not flat shapes, so don't do stripes or flat shapes across like this. Always imagine yourself going with the shape of the branch. Put on bits of blue as well on it, and little bits of icy blue. And just using any earthy shades that you like really, but leaving white bits on for the bits of snow. I'm going to bring up some with the very point of my brush and some fairly dry black that I'm going to make from the Payne's grey and the burnt sienna. Just use it very lightly using the point of the brush. I'm going to bring up some new little branches as well. When I'm doing very fine branches, I kind of hold the brush very tightly and I keep it back like as if I'm trying to hold it back, like as if it's trying to get at the paper, but I'm holding it back. Always remember there's branches around the robin as well. He's not just branches, the branches haven't just cleared a path for him. That gives an extra dimension of tone because you have the white, you have the branches, and then you have some of these very dark little twiggy branches as well coming out. Put in a few. It's not so much the size of the brush that matters for this, even though, I'll just show you this. This is a Princeton, again, it's a number 1 rigger, which is a long brush. It's probably easier to do small little branches with that. I'm so used painting that I find once the brush has a good point on it, but this is kind of easy to do very fine brushes, very fine lines with. Maybe it's a bit easier to use, but again, use it gently. A lot is about the pressure that you put on the paper, and it's good to practice that. It's good to practice just brush strokes. I think that's enough now. And next stage is to paint the robin. Now we'll start painting the robin. So I'm going to introduce another couple of colours now. I'm going to introduce burnt sienna. Well, I've already got burnt sienna there. But for the colours for the robin that I'm going to add now, burnt sienna, a little bit of cadmium orange. Do you know, even though the robin is known to have a red breast, it's actually a little bit orange, really. And a little bit of red to mix in with it, cadmium red. And I have the burnt sienna, and I'm going to use the Payne's grey as well. So just to recap, we have the burnt sienna. So these are the colours of the robin. The Payne's grey. And they, of course, mix to give different shades of brown. And also there's sometimes a little bit of bluey grey on the robin's head, and it can be just that. And then, of course, we have the orange, and we have the red that can go into it. So now I'll start with doing the robin's head. So I'll start with just a little bit. Actually, that mix that I had with the turquoise and into the Payne's grey, I might actually use a little bit of that for his head. Going quickly into a bit of the brown, mixing into it. Actually, I might make the grey more to contrast against the background. Going down around where his eye is. Lighten it up a bit here, get a bit of volume into it. I would use a little bit of grey around here. Oops, that's not grey, that's green. I'm just going to concentrate on the browns and those shades now. To always have a bit of variety. When you have something that is 3D, there's always light hitting it somewhere. So you have different shades in it. So you can drop darker shades into it then, little bits of the Payne's grey going into it just to darken bits of it. Give it that nice feathery look. Also just around his head there. A little bit of orangey colour around there just to lighten it a bit. Always have variety of colour, even sometimes if you just feel like putting it in, even if you don't see it there, it's nice to have nice little contrast in bits. So you'll see that most of the light is in this area here, and so there's going to be a bit more light than there's going to be quite a bit of shadow over the side of him. I'm going to make more definition in this as I go along and as it dries. this back feather here. This back one sort of comes up like a continuation of that line. Then darken the edges of them. Darken that where it goes in. Now, as that dries, then you can put in more. I'll leave it dry for another minute actually before I put in more definition. Okay, so you can always dab in little bits before it dries completely. This is so relaxing to do actually, to just sit and think of all the little feathers and just always think about what you're doing, you know, and get into the feel of it, you know, the softness of the feathers and all that. And the shading. Some people, most people would advise that you do tonal studies of your painting first. I kind of like to do it as I go along, you know, that you compare the tones, like up here is quite dark and similar to shades under here, and, you know, you just keep comparing as you go along. The tone is the depth of shade. Like if it's as if it was a black and white photograph, you know, you see the shades in it. And, you know, think of feathers as you're actually painting. Okay. You can dry brush a little bit of feathers as well, just like this here. Dry brushes when I've cleaned off almost all the paint, and I'm just feathering like this here with the side of the brush. Now I'm going to, for the rest of them now, I'm actually going to wet it all with water. And again, remember with volume, you've always got darkness and lightness. Okay, so I'm going to start with the orange. Get in a bit of the background of orange. So it's going into the wet. Remember, I've actually wet all that area. You get a better feathery feel about it. I'm going to run some of the red into that there now. Leave plenty of space for the eye. Then blues and greys to create your shadows. And then under here will be there's kind of a yellowy colour in under here, sometimes with just the variation of the colour of the feathers. And then some very dark shadows going into that with the Payne's grey. More darkness under there. It's all about contrast really, and light and shade and volume, to get volume into it. And because this is still wet, I can get away with doing feathery things into it that are going to blend in a little bit. A little bit more shadow under there. Actually, I hadn't intended in the very beginning, but what I had mixed up with the turquoise and the Payne's grey is actually quite useful. It gives that nice bluey grey look. That's the thing about painting, you don't always plan everything. It's still nice to use red. You just feel instinctively that the robin should have a red breast, not an orange one. Right, now I'm going to get some pure Payne's grey for the eye. But when I'm doing something very dark, I like to put a little bit of red into it too for some reason or other. Just mix it a little bit. But I'm using kind of pure paint there now. And it will leave a little white speck as well too, just for the little bit of light in his eye. A little glint in his eye. To get a little bit of red up above that again in a second. I'll fix that now in a little while. And then his beak. And don't make the beak completely, whoops, he's got bags under his eyes there now. And he must have had a late night last night. Worse than my own. And that a little bit of bluey colour on the top or some other colour just to differentiate it with a little bit of light. And don't stick it on the side of his face. This is kind of coming right into his face, if you know what I mean. People sometimes have a habit of just sticking the beak on at the side. But this is coming right in. Oh, he's getting to be a cute little robin. A bit darker up there maybe. That dark red there, I mixed it, there was a little bit of burnt sienna beside it and I just mixed it into the burnt sienna. Sometimes, you do these things without thinking, and it's only when you're talking or doing a demonstration that, you become more conscious of what you do. A bit feathery. What I mean now about the comparing the tones, look at this, the colour of his beak, the colour of his eye, the colour of areas under his wing. Under here is just as dark as his eye or the part of his beak, and back here is as well. So it's to keep that going, that you can. Whoops, got a bit of. To keep comparing the tones as you go from place to place. I think I'll just leave it at that, actually. I think, I might just put a little bit of a more lighter colour onto his tail there. But as I say, this is where you just keep going and going. Maybe put a little bit of brightness on his back. No, I think I'll leave him. I think that's enough. So there he is, a little robin in winter in the bushes. Now, it's more or less finished, but I mentioned a while ago that I don't use white paint, but sometimes for snow scenes I would, and so I might just do a little bit here just for the sake of it. This is gouache, which is water-based paint. It's not exactly watercolour, but it works very well with watercolour. So what I've done here is I have put some in here and I've added a little bit of water to make it a little bit more friendly, user-friendly. And I'm going to just scatter some white bits on it by just hitting it like this. Need to put a bit more on it. Load up again. It's actually going all over me as well, so if there's somebody sitting beside you, they mightn't be too happy with you doing this, but you just put it on the brush and just hit it with another brush then. It's particularly nice over the darker areas. So now, he's a winter robin in snow. You might want to take off a little bit off somewhere where you don't want it. Put on another. Now, there he is, a robin in snow. Thank you everybody for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you would have a go at it yourself sometime. If you did enjoy it, please like the video, and if you want to be notified of any further videos that I have coming up, subscribe and click the bell. See you in the next video.